You know, for most of us, cancer is not a statistic. It's our mother, our father, our husband. It's the family of each one of us has a cancer victim or a cancer survivor in it. Now, the Barnes family, one of the reasons I feel so strongly about this, the Barnes family does not die from strokes, heart attack, or diabetes. None of us. I was 65 years old on Monday. Never had a heart attack, never had a stroke, don't have high blood pressure. But what they do die of is cancer, and generally one type, colon rectal cancer. I have had a grandmother, 2 aunts, and uncle have all died of colon rectal cancer. My brother and I are both prostate cancer survivors. My niece died at 32 from Hodgkin's lymphoma, you know, the one that's curable. But she was one of those small percentage that did not. And she left behind a boy who was 5 years old at the time, now 21, who barely remembers his mother. So cancer treatment and research to my family and to me is really close, upfront, and personal. But as a result of the research, and a result is the effort, we've made some tremendous strides. More people are surviving cancer and fewer are getting it. We all know that. Since 1975, really the National Cancer Act 1971, we've had tremendous increases in survivability. It's up to about, to the last figures I've seen, about 66, 67%. It's well on the way to the goal. If you recall, by 2020, that had been established years ago of a 72% survival rate for 5-year survival rate by 2020. And in children, the results have been truly dramatic. Prior to 1975, fewer than 1 in 2 children that became afflicted with cancer would live. And today, it's over 80%. Which is something that we should all be thankful of. In 1975, just to take one example of cancer, men with testicular cancer that had spread had a 5% chance of surviving for a year. Today, that's 80%. So we've had some dramatic increases. The new drugs targeting molecular changes and the development of vaccines are giving hope to the future. But it's not all good news, and we need not rest on our laurels. Some cancers are rising, particularly skin cancers, pancreatic cancers, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and some types of leukemia. Death rates for things like pancreatic cancer, you get pancreatic cancer, you're going to die. I hate to say that, but it's true. And we know that other types of cancer, liver, certain other cancers are rising, and the mortality is shocking. So how can we, what can we do? And how can we do it to make sure that the advances that we've had over the last few years continue? Well, I suggest to you, this is one thing. I'm a recovering politician too, but you can do this when you're no longer in office. What should happen? Well, Congress and the General Assembly need to put their money where their mouth is. All I hear from the legislature, for example, is that the federal government is taking over areas that should be left to the states. Well, why don't, the question I would ask legislators, why don't you return to the original promise made to the people of Georgia, that I made, and the General Assembly endorsed, on the use of the tobacco settlement funds, and use those funds and more for cancer treatment. That was the whole part of cancer research. That was the whole idea behind this. But first, I want to give a little history. In the late 1990s and the turn of this century, doesn't that sound old? The tobacco companies, as you know, wanted to get out of the lawsuit business. They were being sued by the states, and some states were recovering remarkable amounts against them for what they had suppressed and really misled the American people for over the years. And so there was what was called the tobacco settlement. It was a phase 1 and a phase 2. The tobacco companies were willing to pay billions of dollars to get a clean slate and no more lawsuits. And states worked out an agreement. I was on the negotiating team for the phase 2. The states worked out an agreement with the tobacco companies that they would pay us over a period of time, 25 years in fact, certain funds so that to reimburse the states for their losses. And in exchange, the states would release them from any of the claims, and then they would only have the individual claims of persons. And with the lawyers, tobacco lawyers, they would cover you up so that you could never litigate those cases. And that's what's basically happened. Well, I was determined, I was governor at the time, that I was not going to let Georgia blow this money like other states were, building prisons, building roads, throwing it into the general fund, and doing all these other things. And I had the budget office to set up a different category, a whole different unit, it is called in budget language, for the tobacco settlement money, so that it would not go in to the general fund, that it would be kept and accounted for separately. Now they've done away with all this now. And that you could not take money. I told the legislature, I'll veto, line item veto, if you try to take any of the tobacco trust money and put it into the general fund, that it has to be spent within this budget unit. I wanted to do something that had long-lasting health effects, and also equally that we could create an economic development center from research and development and cancer treatment, research and treatment, that would bring about the Atlanta region and Georgia as being the center of the new biomedical and biotech development. Well, there's one other person that needs to be thanked also for all this, and that's Hamilton Jordan. Mispronounced by the Yankees as Jordan for years, but kind of like Cairo, Georgia. Those Egyptians have been mispronouncing Cairo. On Saturday mornings, I didn't know any different, and I came to the office as governor. I'd always come to the office. My daddy ran a general merchandise business, and Saturday was our biggest day, so we always got there early. After I started practicing law, everybody worked at Lockheed, and if they wanted to see you, they came in on Saturday. And so I've always worked on Saturdays. And Hamilton called one day, and he said, I know you work on Saturdays. He says, can I come by to see you? We set up a time, and he came by. And those of you that knew Hamilton had flip charts and pictures. It was always visual with Hamilton. He came in, and we started talking about, he says, I understand that you're looking at what to do with this tobacco settlement money. I said, yes. I said, I'm not going to let them blow it. I want something of long-lasting effect that we have to this state. Particularly because Georgia has higher rates of cancer than most, well, all southern states do. It must be some way we eat, I guess, or something, and live. And so basically what came out of this was this. We would take $600 million, 60% of the money that was going to come to the state of Georgia, and create the Georgia Cancer Coalition, and $400 million that we would raise privately for $1 billion investment and Georgia cancer research in this state. And I became very active on what was called then the National Dialogue on Cancer, and I figured I could if I put $1 billion up, that I could tap the National Institute of Health's National Cancer Institute's funding and to get some national money. I thought the chances of leveraging that were overwhelming. And in fact, we did start attracting some national money. What were the goals of the Cancer Coalition? Well, you're standing in one of them. The first goal is that we were going to have a comprehensive cancer accredited, NCI accredited company. In this state, we did not have. I mean, it was shameful that a state this large. Hamilton did not have a national cancer center. Hamilton had dug the information up to show me how many people that went to UAB and Birmingham had 404 telephone prefixes, that they were leaving the state of Georgia and they were going to UAB to be treated. It was very effective argument that was made. The second, and that has been accomplished, thank goodness. And we're grateful for it, and we should all be proud as Georgians as to what has happened here. The second thing is eminent scholars. We were going to search out the world and find 150 to start with. Eminent scholars. They were going to come in waves. And that we were going to make sure that the state of Georgia supplemented that enough for at least 3 years to attract them no matter what. If we had had this money during this last economic downturn, I would have stolen every researcher in the nation because I would have bought them while they were cheap.